update on the disappearance of Vanessa Guillen. This morning, Vanessa's mother and sister appeared on the Univision TV show Despierta América. On the show, they mentioned that they believe Vanessa has been kidnapped, but that she remains on the base. Her mom goes on to mention that she has the name of someone who she believes to be involved, but the name has not been released to the public. It has been shared with Texas Representative Sylvia Garcia. As of this morning, Representative Garcia has announced that she will be joining the family in the search for Vanessa. As always, I will keep you updated with any new information.
This woman turned people into soap. She was an Italian serial killer and soap maker, and in 1939, she found out that her favorite son was joining the Italian army to fight in World War II, and she wanted to protect him and somehow came to the conclusion that she needed to make human sacrifices. And she didn't look far for her victims. They were all three middle-aged women who were her neighbors. She would lure the women away with the promise of helping them, but then drug, kill them with an axe, and then cut up their body into pieces that she used to make soap. And then she even took some of their blood and made tea cakes out of it, which she would serve to people who came over to her house. And when suspicion started to fall on her, she denied everything initially. But then people began to question her son's involvement, and she immediately admitted to everything in detail so that no blame would go into her son, and she was found guilty of all of her crimes.
If you knew what this woman did, you would be horrified by this photo. Let me explain. This 17-year-old girl is Tylee Vallow, and this is her little brother, JJ. He's 7. They're both currently missing. No one has seen them since September. This was her husband, Charles Vallow. He got killed last year. This is her brother, Alex Cox. He killed Charles Vallow. But guess what? He's dead too. And this is her new husband, Chad Daybell. Guess what? He's alive. But his wife died of natural causes in her sleep at the age of 49 last year. 2 weeks after his wife died, Lori and Chad Daybell got married on the beach in Hawaii in November while her children were still missing. Lori and her new husband are being accused of being in a cult called Preparing a People, which believes that the world is going to end in July. Lori's currently on trial for their disappearance, but nobody knows where the kids are. If you want to check out the full video, make sure you head on over to my YouTube channel.
3 of the stupidest ways serial killers have been caught. Number 3, David Berkowitz, aka Son of Sam, didn't look where he was parking before he went out to kill 2 people, and when he came back, he had a parking ticket that police traced directly to him. Number 2, Dennis Nelson, who used to flush parts of his victims down the toilet in his apartment and then had the audacity to complain that the drains were clogged. And when a worker was sent to fix that, they discovered human remains and Nelson was caught. And number 1, Dennis Rader, who asked the police if floppy disks could be traced, and they said no, and then he sent the police a floppy disk that they traced right back to him.
Stop scrolling, I need your help. This is me, and when I was 13 years old, I was kidnapped by an internet predator, but I was rescued because of this poster. Since my rescue, I've dedicated my life to bringing other missing people home, and I need your help. On November 1st, 2020, Gloria Alvarado disappeared from her Detroit, Michigan home in the middle of the night. The window screen in her bedroom had been cut and her cell phone was left on the bed. Oddly, her toothbrush was also missing. Gloria's family and friends report that she is a homebody and a straight-A student. She's very close to her family and showed no signs of discontent the night before her disappearance. The only lead authorities have is a brief video of a man stepping out of a car in front of Gloria's house the night of her disappearance. Though suspicious, it's not clear that this has anything to do with her disappearance. Gloria is 15 years old, Hispanic, 5'4", and 168 pounds. If you have any information, please call the Taylor Police Department.
I'm making this TikTok in the event that I go missing or murdered. If I'm alive and well, keep scrolling. Okay, you're still here, so I am missing or murdered. That sucks. Let's get to work.
The cops may not think to check my nightstand, but they really should.
This notebook is not locked. Is it a journal? No, I don't have the emotional intelligence for that. This is a short list of suspects, people who in the event of my death may have killed me. And if you are at all familiar with true crime or cold cases, you know that the chances are very, very high that the small group of detectives working on my case will bungle it. Oh, but it's usually the spouse. What if it's her husband and he sees this and he takes the notebook from her nightstand and he gets rid of it?
Screenshots of everything inside this notebook have already been sent to my sister in another state.
This photo is not at all what it first appears to be, part 16. This looks like a couple caught at a Christmas party on December 14th, 2002, but Amber Frey is not Scott Peterson's wife. His wife is Lacey Peterson, who at the time was 8 months pregnant, and who just 10 days after this photo would be reported missing. And eventually her and her unborn son would be found in the San Francisco Bay. Scott Peterson is currently on death row for their murders.
What's a piece of information that you learned that feels illegal to know?
That the easiest way to murder someone, to get away with it, is if you take a syringe filled with potassium and inject it under their tongue. It will mimic the symptoms of a heart attack, and the coroner won't be looking, or the medical examiner won't be looking for any injections or anything. They'll just be looking for a cause of death, and they'll see that it was a heart attack. And the wound, under the tongue where you injected it, will have healed by then, but you have to make sure you inject it into the wound so it goes into the bloodstream. But yeah, that's how you get away with murder.
Kids Who Kill, Part 1. The next time you see a cute kid, just remember, they could be a cold, heartless killer. But I mean, most likely it's just a cute kid. Today, we are taking a look at the killing that shocked a nation as two 10-year-old boys kidnapped, mutilated, and tortured 2-year-old James Bulger in England in 1993. James' mom took her eyes off him for 1 second while shopping, and 10-year-olds Robert Thompson and James Venables kidnapped James Bulger and led him to the train tracks. This is the last time that James Bulger was seen alive. The two boys threw paint on him, stomped on him, dropped bricks and rocks on him, and finally crushed him with a giant piece of metal. They left him on the train tracks after he was unresponsive in hopes the train would make it look like an accident. The train did run over him, but police were still able to figure out that there was foul play, and the two boys were caught. Both the boys spent 12 years in prison, but they're also both out now. This case shaped the way England looked at children criminals and left people wondering if some people are just born evil.
The differences between male and female serial killers. Males typically kill for sexual gratification, whether that's psychological or physical, and their victim's identity matters less. They typically kill strangers. In contrast, 90% of female serial killers know their victims, and they tend to kill for practical or justifiable reasons, at least in their minds, with the most common motivation being financial gain.
Child Killers Part 1, Eric Smith. On August 2nd, 1993, Eric Smith was only 13 years old when he lured a boy into the woods. He was riding his bike to a local summer camp to where he saw a 4-year-old boy, Derek Robbie, walking alone to the same camp. Smith lured him into the woods and then dropped a rock on his head. He then proceeded to sexually assault him in ways that I'm not going to say. So at around 11 a.m., Derek Robbie's mother went to the park to pick up her son, but he was never there and they said he never arrived. 4 hours later, his body was found in the woods. So at first, no one really knew who could have done this to him. There was not really much evidence. Eric was kind of suspicious because he was hanging around the investigation quite a bit. So within days of the murder, Eric confessed to his parents and they took him to the police station and he was arrested. One thing to note, when he was younger, he killed animals.
Craziest Things Found on the Dark Web, Part 2. And I'm only doing Part 2 right now because I know that so many of you guys follow me because you want Part 2. But just know that generally, I do 1 part per day of any series that I'm doing. And it's probably all uphill from here because today we're going to be looking at one of the most crazy, twisted things that's ever been on the internet. DeFu Love. This video can pretty much not be found anywhere on the internet right now other than the deep web. Now, I, of course, have not seen this video. Actually, if you have seen this video, you have committed a crime. The only good thing to come from the video is that this guy, Peter Scully, is serving life in prison. So this guy was a child rapist and a child torturer and filmed it all and put it on the dark web. Legend has it that the video still floats around in the deep web. And by the way, they say 80% of the deep web is somehow tied to pedophilia. The video is actually so bad that even the details of it, I can't even really tell you. All I'll tell you is it involves torturing babies. What kind of sick and twisted person would want to watch babies getting tortured?
If I go missing and the cops say they have it under control, instant skip. No, they do not. My dream team of investigators, girls, gays, and theys. People who are thinking outside the box. Diverse thought, different perspectives. I want those spidey senses that only women have. I want Black women, Latina women, Jewish women, women who will get to the bottom of it. I need scorned women, petty women. Let's talk astrology. Virgos, I need you taking notes. Scorpios, you're knocking on doors. Oh, Scorpios, you are going to get this done. No one is too old or too young. Get me those Gen Z crime junkies. You saw them in the comments. They're wizards, very invested. If you saved my last video and played it in slow-mo, you are on the team. I do not need 7 white men with the same haircut investigating my murder. Myers-Briggs, ESTPs for the win, but I'm not counting out my introverts. INFJs, let's get the spreadsheets going.
Whatever you're doing, stop and watch this video. It's worth it, I promise. Strangest Ways to Die, Part 6. This is Denver Lee St. Clair, and he was killed by his stepson via an atomic wedgie. This is his stepson, Brad Davis, that was charged with the murder. An atomic wedgie is when someone's underwear is pulled up over their head by the elastic band, and in this case, it went down around his throat and it strangled him to death. Brad Davis was convicted as a killer and received 30 years in prison. And somehow, the story gets better. I mean, someone died, but you understand what I mean. After it happened, the victim's niece took to Facebook and said that the wedgie did not kill her uncle. She said he was actually killed by blunt force, aka getting hit with something. She said he gave the atomic wedgie after death, implying that someone actually thought giving an atomic wedgie would be a good cover-up for a murder.
Imagine killing someone while sleepwalking. This is the case of Kenneth Parks. On March 24th, 1987 in Toronto, Canada, it was the early mornings when Kenneth Parks fell asleep while watching TV. Suddenly, he got up, put his shoes on, and walked out the door. He left the door open. He got in his car, drove off, and left the garage door open. He drove 14 miles to his in-laws' house where he tried to strangle his father-in-law and brutally murdered his mother-in-law. He then walked into a police station and said, "I think I killed someone." Police say that his tendons in his hands were cut, but that he showed no sign of pain, which they thought was really weird, which only concluded that he did all of this while sleepwalking.
On this episode of Where Are They Now? Criminal Edition, I'm going to be giving you an update on one of the worst monsters in history, Christopher Lee Watts. On November 19, 2018, Chris was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, including 84 years on additional counts for the murder of his wife and 2 daughters. Here's a quick recap. On August 13, 2018, Chris strangled his then-wife Shanann and smothered his daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. When his wife was reported missing, Chris made up a story to police and even gave this callous interview to the media. Chris was arrested 2 days later and confessed to the killings. Since December 5, 2018, Chris has been housed at the Dodge Correctional Institution in Wisconsin and spends 23 hours in isolation. The now 35-year-old Chris Watts has resigned to the reality that he will spend every day of his life in prison, has stated that he has found religion, is full of regret, and that he reflects on his sins daily.
Disturbing Serial Killer Quotes, Part 3. Joe Metheny. The words "I'm sorry" will never come out, for they would be a lie. I am more than willing to give up my life for what I have done, to have God judge me and send me to hell for eternity. Metheny killed up to 13 people, and he used their flesh for food he would make and sell at his burger stand.
By the end of this story, you're going to think this is one of the creepiest pictures you ever saw. This is Franklin Floyd. In 1974, he met a woman named Sandy Chipman, and they got married together, and he became the stepdad to her 4 children. But you see, Sandy had an affinity for writing bad checks, and she got caught and ended up having to do 30 days in jail. But when she got out of jail, her 4 children disappeared, and so did Franklin. You can probably tell by his outfit, this story doesn't end well. In 1989, Floyd resurfaced, and he married a woman named Tanya. But Sandy's kids were nowhere to be found. But strangely, in 1990, Tanya also had some issues as she was found a victim of a hit-and-run episode on the side of the road with her son Michael. And her husband Franklin was the suspected driver. But this is where it gets really crazy. Tanya died in the accident, and an autopsy revealed through a DNA test, it turned out she was actually one of Floyd's stepchildren that he kidnapped from Sandy Chipman. So this picture is a convicted killer on death row with his stepdaughter that would become his wife.
Hey guys, I'm back and I've got another case for you. So let me tell you in 30 seconds why he is a literal monster. On July 10th, Howard Jansen reported his little 3-year-old daughter Olivia is missing to the police. He said he woke up that morning at 5:30, didn't see Olivia, and hasn't seen her since the night before when she went to bed. An Amber Alert is immediately issued and the search begins. Meanwhile, his fiancée refuses them to search her car. Red flag number 1. The grandparents report that Howard and his fiancée are both drug addicts. Red flag number 2. Just a few hours later, the search is called off after they find Olivia's body buried in a shallow grave. She had bruises on her face and appears to have been badly beaten. The father is immediately arrested, and the fiancé is also arrested shortly after. They're both charged with first-degree murder, among other charges. A source comes forward and says that they saw the parent feed Olivia soap, wrap her in a blanket and duct tape it, throw her into walls, starve her, yet never tried to stop it.
So this one's gonna be short, but I just saw this on YouTube and I was intrigued. Kamaya Mobley was born July 10th, 1998 in a Florida hospital. 8 hours later, she was mysteriously abducted. A woman in scrubs pretending to be a nurse entered the room where Kamaya and her mother lay, took the baby, and left. For years, police had no idea where she went. Then, in 2017, a girl told investigators that she was Kamaya Mobley. Apparently, she had asked her mom for her social security number over a year earlier, and when she asked, her mom broke down and told her that she abducted her. Apparently, the woman, Gloria Williams, had stolen Kamaya, taken her to South Carolina, and raised her as her daughter, Alexis. Allegedly, she was incited to do this because she had miscarried a week before she stole Kamaya, and she just told her family that that was her baby. Though she's met her real parents, Alexis still calls Gloria her mom and lives in her house, anticipating her return from prison in 18 years.